After 14 years mixing professionally, including hundreds of BBC sessions, I still remember the frustration of knowing something's not right, but not quite sure how to fix it. Turns out, most boring mixers share the same 5 issues. So in this video, I'm going to help you spot them and show you 5 fixes so your mixers finally start sound as exciting as the songs you love. I'm a poet and I don't know it. You know your mix has all the right parts and should sound amazing, but it's just lacking in excitement. That's often because the energy just kind of sits there. There are no highlights or lowlights, no contrast, and above all, no story. A common cause for this is a set and forget mixing mindset. You set your faders, you add layers of compression, some EQ and effects, and then leave it. The problem is all that compression can squash the natural dynamics that make a song feel alive. I've got 2 tracks here, they're both mixers. They're both the same song, but I want to draw your attention to the waveform and how this second one here that's been compressed looks quite different to the more dynamic version above it. You can notice that there's a bigger drop, I guess you could say, here into the second half of the song. You can see that that is much louder, more dynamic in comparison to the earlier section of the song. Whereas if you compare the track underneath, which has been compressed, you can see there's much less of a difference. And this is a result of overcompression on a mix bus, really, in a mix bus scenario. But it can equally apply to any instrument track or vocal. So it's really important to be mindful how hard you compress tracks, but also mixers as well on the mix bus. Another way to deal with a mix that's got some heavy compression running through it is to use automation. In mixes where we've had to use a lot of compression, or we've chosen to use a lot of compression with parallel compression, we've compressed all the vocals, all the guitars, all the drums on the buses, it can start to feel a little bit static. So I've got a mix here where that is the case. It's heavy guitars, it's distorted vocals, and it's big drums. What's happening here is that there's very little movement in terms of dynamics between the verses and the choruses.
I woke with thoughts of you and felt brand new, 'cause that's the only thing I'll ever know. Only thing I'll ever know, 'cause that's the only thing I'll ever. I drove down to see the kids at Westwood Falls.
Okay, so it's just there's no dynamic difference between the verse and the chorus there. And this is where I would consider using volume automation on the mix bus to bring some of that back. The quick and easy way to do this, particularly if you've got markers in your track for your verses and your choruses, middle eights, etc., is to come down to your mix bus. So the sort of the drop, if you like, I don't know if that's the right terminology for a rock song, but the chorus, I guess.
I'll ever know. Only thing
So I usually just put in a automation mark at that point of the beginning of the chorus, and then I'll go to the end of the chorus and place another mark where I want the volume automation to stop.
I drove.
So there.
I drove down to see.
And the way I like to do this is that the choruses need to be the loudest sections of the song and the verses will be a little bit quieter. So rather than boosting the level of the choruses with automation, I bring down the level of the verses. And that just ensures that you're not going to introduce any clipping and just keeps you in a safe space with regard to levels. Now this mix kind of starts with a chorus, a bit like Dancing Queen by ABBA. So I'm going to place a mark there, which is our in point for the verse. So we've got the intro of the song here leading to the first verse and then the chorus there. So quite simply, it's just a matter of bringing down the verse by 1 dB.
I drove up to Lennox Head and went to bed.
Verses.
I drove up to Lennox Head and went.
Okay, so you feel that, you sense that level change, and it just feeds into that sort of scene change of going into a verse from a chorus. So if we were to if I bring that back down to -1, let's check this crossover here into the chorus.
Cause that's the only thing I'll ever know. Only thing I'll ever know. Cause that's the only thing I'll ever
Okay, and then if I undo that,
know. Cause that's the only thing I'll ever know. Only thing.
okay, so I hope that demonstrates that for you. Now, not every song needs this, because not every song might be as compressed as this, but it's one of my go-tos for building back in excitement and movement into a mix. Once I've done everything else, once I'm reasonably happy with the mix, then I'll go in and start to do this sort of mix bus automation. Once the dynamics start to feel alive again, the next thing that kills excitement is how congested your mix feels. How do you fix that? If your mix sounds like it's coming from like a ball in the middle of the speakers instead of surrounding you, that's a width problem. A narrow mix usually happens because nothing was panned intentionally. Before you reach for your stereo wideners, take a step back though and interrogate the arrangement. I've mentioned this a lot in my videos, but let me just show you what I mean. This mix here is drums, bass, acoustic guitar, series of electric guitars, some keyboards and vocals. So before reaching for any sort of artificial widening, I always look at what tracks I've been given and if I can create the maximum amount of width with those before I apply any processing. So in interrogating the arrangement of this particular session of this mix, the constant instrumentation playing all the way through is the acoustic and are these sort of electric guitar parts here. They're playing all the way through the track. And then what we've been given were these little kind of supplementary tracks or supporting tracks, these interesting little embellishments going on from verse into chorus. I just, it was something to consider moving around. And then through a lead guitar section here. The keyboards are only really playing in the choruses. So what I'm thinking is, how can I create some sort of left-right interest between the guitars and the keyboards, rather than defaulting to everything being hard left, hard right and stereo. I want to create a bit more interest than that and have maybe something guitar-y on the left and something keyboardy on the right. So what I chose to do in this track, in the verses, there's this electric here. So I decided to keep that wide. And then this track here, I wanted to bring in more narrow than that. So the two together. Okay, so that's the very edges filled there, and then something a little bit more focused and central. I've muted the vocals so we can hear, just concentrate on the instrumentation. Then there's an acoustic. So can you place where that is? I decided to put that ever so slightly left. It's not near either of the two electrics. It's just in its own space. And that really plays out like that through the verses. And we get these little sort of embellishments as well. Okay, now we're getting into the chorus. We're going into a scene change, and I want to change the kind of focus, I guess. I want to move the listener from the acoustic that's slightly left, because nothing's moved so far. There's been no shift, and our ear picks up on change. So for the chorus, I went to the keyboards and placed them more on the right. So we get this. Okay, and this is what I'm talking about, is creating movement before you even add a plugin, by being considered and purposeful about where you're placing your elements so that you create this sense of movement and width. That change, the introduction of the keyboards on the right, is a moment of difference, is a point of difference for the ear to, oh, hello, and keep, it's interest. Keeps the listener wanting to hear more. And if you can reverse engineer that, if you produce your own tracks, record your own tracks, and think about that early on in the process, the mix really does mix itself. You should be asking yourself, what's the focal point at this moment in time in the song? What can I move to the sides to create more separation between the elements? Or even move away from the sides, bring in more narrow for the same reason. You're going to keep your mono foundational tracks, your kick, your snare, your bass, your vocal up the middle. So you've got the edges to play with. And just stick to one or two things on the very, very edges, and then place everything else in between, and you'll end up with a really nice spread of instrumentation. And where you place things in between in that ball in the middle of the speakers, be intentional about where you're placing them and why you're placing them there. I hope I've demonstrated that in this example. If you want to know more, my Static Mix mini course goes into this in real deep detail. The link will be in the description for that if you're interested. Now that your mix feels wider and more expansive, how do you introduce movement without overdoing it? Our ears are drawn to change. When everything stays the same, we kind of zone out. Even if the sound is technically good, it can blend into everything else. And movement is a tool we can use to add emotion to our mixes, and it's often overlooked by beginners. We want our mixes to make people feel something. Never forget that. Movement can come from modulation effects like chorus, phaser, tremolo, flanges, or autopan. These tiny shifts in tone or position keep the ear active. For this guitar track here, I used tremolator. It's really subtle, and that's the key to using these effects. Don't go crazy. Don't just use them for the sake of using them. Use them for a purpose. And for me, I was triggered to reach for this plugin is because the way this part was played. It's a picking part. It had movement to it. I wouldn't put this on just kind of like, power chords or anything like that. There's already movement in the track, dynamic in the track, and I want to exaggerate that, and I thought that I usually reach for this to do that, just to accentuate any sort of modulation that's already in the recording. Next, on this little sort of bell sound, so that's brow motion. I wanted to create more of a left-right auto pan, which is exactly what this plugin does. I'll use modulation often on keyboards. In this particular track, I don't think I did. I just stuck with some saturation. If we listen to the Rhodes, now I would listen to that, and to my ear, that has got enough of a modulation to it built in already. I didn't need to enhance that any further. I will use tremolator on organs and keyboards to do exactly that, to exaggerate what's already there. But this felt exaggerated enough built into the recording, so I didn't need to do it. This is the sort of thing to listen out for, things where there is movement already in the tone, in the sound, and make a decision. Do I exaggerate this further, or am I happy with it? Sometimes you may need to try and calm it down somehow. So this is the chorus, no vocals. And what I want you to notice there is the scat guitar here, which is panned to the left in opposition somewhat to the keyboards that are panned slightly to the right. And it just catches the ear there on the left-hand side. Keep it subtle. Don't exaggerate it too much. All you're trying to do here is just stop the listener getting bored. Give them something to listen to, some ear candy. But there's another kind of movement you might be missing that makes an even bigger emotional impact. No plugins needed. Let me show you how. Automation is like controlling the camera in a blockbuster movie. When everything is in the scene and it's locked into a wide shot, you can see the whole story, but nothing really grabs you. The power comes when the director starts to zoom in or move the lens. A slow zoom in draws your focus to a single event, just like a subtle vocal push makes you pay attention to a lyric. A slow pan follows the action, and that's guiding your attention across the frame, just like riding a fader brings a guitar solo to life. And you know one of those sudden zoom ups that you get, real close up, that hits at the climax, and it really magnifies the intensity of the scene, which is exactly what a momentary automation boost does when a chorus hits. Automation gives you that director's control. It's how you can take a static shot of a great performance and turn it into a compelling story that holds the listener's attention from start to finish. We use automation to highlight key moments in the mix, guiding the listener's journey, creating the story. It's more than just volume rides. We use it with effects as well, with EQ also. It's all about just creating moments of change. The world is your oyster. It's just how creative you are, and there are no limits. And typically, for me, it's vocal automation, but then it's listening for little embellishments or noodling, as I call it, where the musician has played something, a little flourish of something. And if it's in a gap between a couple of vocal lines, then that's my kind of clue to give that a bit of a push with some volume automation to draw the listener's attention to it at that moment, much like that director doing a slow zoom in to one of the actors in that blockbuster movie we spoke about earlier. You can see that this mix has got all sorts of volume automation on it. On the snare there, I'm dropping a kick drum there in a breakdown, and then the toms also need some automation. The overheads as well, I have done some riding with my fader. I used the SSL UF1. And that's just to bring a bit more sort of excitement through the second chorus into the breakdown and into the solo section. This is like a blues rock track. that is all about guitars, but I wanted to give the drums some love in this section. Let's take a listen to that.
He said he's gonna keep on pushing through. Things like I'll never be okay, babe, but somehow I survive. Somehow I
Okay, enjoying that. Sorry for the prolonged listen there, but you can see I've done some volume rides on this lead guitar. Again, give it some more dynamic, give it some movement. So what's the missing glue that holds all this stuff together? You can have the best balance and width in the world, but if your effects don't create contrast, the mix will sound still and sterile. Reverb and delay simulate space and create moments of anticipation. So let's take a look at that. We can look at the vocals, and there's something here where I've got a few different automation things happening.
Tell myself everything is fine. Everything is gonna be fine.
So it's this male vocal here that I have treated to made it sound like a telephone. This Butch Vig vocals plugin is what I used for that telephonic effect, and then used automation to switch it off for the final part of that phrase.
Everything is gonna be fine.
And then there's an automated send here as well, going to a stereo delay, this ping pong delay.
Thing is gonna be fine.
Which is down here with Echo Boy.
Thing is gonna be fine.
Which is on telephone style. So it just adds, it's filling a gap.
Tell myself everything is fine. Everything is gonna be fine. I'm running on empty.
Then throughout the vocals, there's a whole heap of vocal automation, vocal rides with my fader. Just want to keep those vocals on top of the instrumentation during this last loud outgoing section of the mix.
I'm running on empty, falling to pieces, gonna keep on pushing through. Things like I'll never be okay, babe, but somehow I survive.
And there's, you could hear the stereo delay there as well going on. That's another way to bring in interest and movement into a mix, not only for the actual audio tracks, but with the parallel tracks as well. This is some automation on the drum tracks. Okay, really brings up the excitement of the drum track. And then, last but not least, there's the mix bus automation, where I've brought the verses down and the breakdown down so that the choruses can hit hard. All these tiny changes create emotion in your track, and it stops the listener getting bored. It really pays to take the time to go through and find these areas where you can use effects to your advantage and really use them to expand the soundstage, create different scenes, depth, Really, it's endless what you can do with effects. And combining with automation, you get the best of all worlds and glue all this stuff together to create much more interesting and professional sounding mixes. If reverb is your Achilles heel and you want to learn more about that, I'll drop a link in the description for my Unlocking Reverb Types video. In the video, I explain how to choose which type to use, how the different types sound, so that you can add them to your template and apply them to every mix. I'll drop a link to that in the description if you want to watch that later. When you're using effects and automation, you should really try and follow the musical phrasing. Add delay throws at the end of a line, not at random. You can push a reverb into a downbeat and then pull it back for the rest of the bar. And every move should serve the rhythm and the story of the song. Pro tip for you here, do this in 2 passes. Do 1 pass first just to spot the opportunities. So listen to it from start to finish. You want to maintain that sense of momentum. Don't press stop, just have a notepad and make some notes or drop a marker where you get some inspiration for an idea. So do that all in 1 pass and then do a 2nd pass where you start to commit these moves into your session. These small, deliberate changes add up to a really big kind of emotional shift when you get it right. But here's the thing. If your static mix isn't solid first, you can find yourself going around in circles with these tricks and ultimately getting the mix sounding over-processed and messy. And that's why I built the Static Mix mini course. It's the foundation that lets all these creative moves actually sound intentional instead of random. So that's your rescue plan for bringing back to life a boring mix. To make it easy for you to try this out, I've got a cheat sheet that you can grab. It's down below in the description. Stick it somewhere near your desk next time you're mixing, so you've always got a reminder when things start to sound a little bit safe. Now that you know how to bring life back to your mix, let's take it a step further. Head over to my next video where I'll show you how to use delay throws on a vocal. It's a simple trick that instantly adds excitement and contrast. Click the video on screen and let's make your next mix sound more like a record. That's all from me this week. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.